And Audacity in 3, 2, and 1.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the Barbell. Did I unmute myself? Yeah, I did. Sorry, Shane. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Barbell Lifestyle Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to kind of shoot the shit. We have no outline, or we originally did, but we decided just kind of to do a little bit more of just kind of like life updates for me and Marissa. So if you haven't already heard the news, I am pregnant. So I'm about 15 and a half weeks. So I'll be 16 on Thursday, September 16th. So Thursdays are my next weekly milestone. And Marissa has some big, exciting changes as well. No, she is not pregnant, but has some other exciting news that we'll get into.
Yeah, I just want to say live on air, Christina, I'm so excited for you guys. And just was honored to know ahead of time. And so if you guys didn't know, that's like one of the main motivators for us starting the short series as well, is just as we go into all of these life changes that are happening, just being prepared to need to do these solo episodes just in case something comes up, or one of us is tied up with something. And so just another way to ensure that we can keep giving you guys quality content every single week without needing to make sure we have a time every single week. But this is not your only news. I'm not even going to talk about myself yet. You are officially full-time doing your coaching business as of this week, as of today, right?
Yeah. So as of Friday, that was my last day counseling. It was a really tough decision. And I think part of it, like a lot of people who've probably struggled with this, you go to school for a specific topic or career, and it is very difficult to break away from said career when you have spent a lot of time and energy and money. I had $50,000 worth of grad school, as well as 7 years of experience. And not to mention, I love my kids. I love school counseling. I love being able to interact with them. So it was really difficult to walk away from it full time. But I made that decision just because my heart was in a very different place. And I didn't think it was fair to kind of do half and half. So half of my, half of myself was with counseling. The other half was fitness and nutrition and in my coaching business. But I decided to go where my heart led. And I think it'll just be really good, especially with the transition of working from home with a baby. So super excited. And I appreciate also your kind words. It was really sweet.
Yeah. And I really do think, like, especially with kind of just your business growth over the past, it's really been like since the podcast started that you really started to double down on it as well. And it's been like, I don't know if I've told you this like to your face, but like, we're just going off the seat of our pants here on this podcast. So I just want you to know that, like, seeing you double down really on your coaching business and grow it to the capacity that you have now has been amazing. And I love that about you, that, you realize that you can't really put 100% into two different things at once. And so, this was the right move to follow your passion. So I'm super happy for you.
I appreciate that. And you're lucky that I'm early in the pregnancy and not later on, and I don't have all those like crazy hormones. But I did. Well, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate that. But the other day, my husband and I were watching a movie, and it's a movie I've seen before. So it's,
so you knew it was coming.
I knew it was going to happen. And it was, so I don't know if you've ever seen the movie 7 Pounds with Will Smith.
I haven't.
Okay. It's so sad. It's so sad. And oh my God, I'm going to start crying. So I've already seen the movie. Like, what's going to happen within the first, 10, 15 minutes of the movie. I was bawling my eyes, like ugly crying, like sobbing. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this like pregnancy or I don't know. So I know that a lot of my pregnant clients usually experience like the extreme moodiness kind of towards the end. So I was like, oh geez.
Yeah. Well, your hormones are still going all over the place, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it's definitely different than normal. So I would chalk it up to that for sure.
Yeah. But, I think so too.
Or we'll just say that it was.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, so like, I don't know, do we want to do some of your updates, or how do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I can try to briefly touch on all of my life changes
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
let's go for it.
So yeah, lots of updates happening, and like we haven't done a whole lot of personal updating on the podcast lately, but I mean, you guys have been listening religiously for, I mean, it's coming up on a year now, so like I guess you're pretty invested in us in our lives. So we'll tell you what's going on. Aaron and I signed a contract on August 7th to build a home in North Carolina. And so we are officially homeowners because we got our underwriting approval for our loan. We did our design appointment. We are officially locked in, and there is no getting out of this contract for us and no refunds for the money that we've put down. So like we're in this. But yeah, really, really excited. So we are going to be in the greater Charlotte area. And so really excited because North Carolina has always been a state that we've kind of like bounced back and forth. We bounced back and forth with North Carolina, with Texas, with Florida, and a little bit of New Mexico because someone was definitely really excited for us to even think about moving.
I tried, guys.
Yeah, she tried,
Yeah, I did.
But we ended up going with North Carolina. And the question I get the most is why North Carolina or why Charlotte? And I mean, when we really got down to thinking about it, it was more of a why not than a why is the answer that we've really come down to. And we love the state. It's beautiful, and it's first of all not too far from home. This is actually my first real move out of my hometown, because my hometown is Northern Virginia. And while I did move out when I was 18, and that's something I'm really proud of, and you know, I think it's contributed a lot to my growth, so I'm not discrediting that. I still was technically living under my mom's roof because she would be the landlord at every apartment or condo that I've had. And I love her for that because I never had to deal with any sort of like contracts or, you know, leases with like official, you know, whatever, landlords, realtors. Never had to go through that process because she has a background in realty. So she helped me out with that. But in a way, it has kind of been a little bit of a crutch, I would say, versus like doing it all on my own. So this is my first move out of my hometown, and it's to, you know, a new state and all of the things that moving states entails. But yeah, we have Core Nutritionals, so the supplement company I do have a part-time position with. They are down in that area as well, so we will be pretty close to where their gym is set up. And so that was one motivator. It was definitely not the only one, but like just having people and friends and a culture there that we love and resonate with a lot, and of course a gym that we can go to that we know is going to be sick is a big motivator. But also we just started honestly like seeing signs for Charlotte. Everywhere we went, we would either see it like on Instagram, people would be like visiting or going to Lake Norman, or, you know, just tagging that location. And then like a couple of like really like freaky like signs sort of popped up. Kind of, I think it was in that period where we were really thinking about it and just like looking for reasons why or why not to, you know, go check out the area or even consider a move. And so we kind of just were like, what's holding us down here? And we decided, you know, nothing is technically holding us down to a location. We're both work from home. My business can go freaking anywhere. So we were like, let's do it. And I don't want this to be too long, but is it okay if I tell the story of like how we actually came up on the house?
Yeah, go for it.
Have I told you this story?
I don't know. Tell it.
Okay, so basically we went down for the 4th of July to visit our friends Sam and Pat, who work for Core. And we just partied, hung out for the 4th weekend. It was so much fun. Didn't really have huge intentions for moving at that point, but we were like, oh, like they totally want us to like move there and join them. Like they've like joked about it, and they've been like, oh, we want to convince you to move here, whatever. So we go there, we come back. This is when we start entertaining the idea of like, what if we did? Like, what if we did just go? Like, what's the worst that could happen? Or what's the best that could happen, right? And so we entertained that. And then they were asking me to come down for the Global Leadership Summit, which is like a virtual event that they stream and they host every single year. And so that was the beginning of August. So we were like, you know what, let's go for that. And then on Saturday, we can go look at real estate and like apartments and homes and all of that. And we'll just see. Right. And we kind of were just like, not intending to really do anything, but like, granted, this was August 5th and 6th was the conference, or no, 4th and 5th, one of those two. And then the 7th was the day we signed a contract. So it happened that weekend. But we were basically just like, we looked at an apartment complex and we kind of just were like, this is fine. But like, where is that money really going if we're paying a landlord every month? Right. And so we knew that the cost of living was a lot cheaper down in North Carolina. So we were like, okay, let's like look at some houses, looked at a couple that were for sale. And then we just started driving, and there are so many development neighborhoods in the greater Charlotte area. It's just booming with new real estate. So we
kind of like my neighborhood.
Yeah. So we literally just drove and like did it the old fashioned way. And we just drove into neighborhoods with signs that were like, hey, new houses being built here and here and here. So we went to a couple, and the last one we went to was the one where we ended up signing. We pulled in, and the lady there just helped walk us through like what our budget, our buying power, everything down there would be. And we realized like we could actually afford this thing, and like not just like, stretch ourselves thin and do it, but like comfortably afford doing this. And we're like, oh crap. I was ready to sign the contract that day, that Saturday, when we were like touring the houses, looking at everything. She was like, you want to get on the phone with a loan officer? And I was like, yeah, babe, you want to do it? And he was like, I need 24 hours to process this. He was like heaving, like he was not okay.
Poor
And
Aaron.
I know he's not going to listen to this, so I can say whatever I want, but he was
Same.
like, he was like, yeah, like I need to sleep on this. Like, let me process this. So like we called our parents that evening. Sam and Pat used the same exact builders as us, True Homes. So like they had a lot of input on like the process and how it went for them. And like, honestly, they were just in love. So all positive feedback. Both of our parents were super supportive. And so then the next day we went in and we signed that contract. So our design appointment was September 2nd. So last Thursday, 2 Thursdays ago. And that's where we pick, like, it's a semi-custom home. So we had to pick like a lot. Was yours semi-custom or?
No, so we actually weren't able to design or have input for anything. It was ready. It was ready to go. Yeah. The only thing they hadn't done was furnish it or like stage it, but they didn't really need to at that point. But I mean, I wish there were a couple things that we could have changed, but at the end of the day, I mean, we asked if they could change like the backsplash, and they were like, no, because there are so many people who want to buy this house. And we're like, okay, cool. We'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like we kind of like almost wish for that, because the design appointment is like an 8-hour freaking day.
So much to decide on.
You have to pick everything. And so we actually didn't disagree on a ton. So we only took like 4 out of the 8 hours, but it was still like a crap ton of choices. But super fun, super happy with everything how it turned out, and like everything that we've chosen. We can't change anything because it's like $2,000 or $3,000 if you decide to change something just for the change, and then like however much it costs to change it. So we're locked in. We're freaking locked in. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. I guess some other context with that is, I know I've talked about my master's and being at Mason for that. Technically that would have held me down to a location because they're actually back in person now. So something I did earlier this summer was withdraw from Mason and apply to some online schools, because personally commuting was not something that I wanted to do. And with my business growth, as well with like the podcast and just everything else that we have on our plates, like I was just like, I can't see myself going to class. Like I need to do this on my own time. And so I haven't fully decided on exactly where yet, because I'm still waiting on a couple of things to come back. But I basically just took like the first 8 weeks of the fall off. And so I'll have a decision made probably by the end of this month of where I'm going to be. And I'll announce that when that comes to fruition. But that was basically like the last thing that could have held me in the area. But that's, and it really all happened by coincidence. I didn't like transfer out just because I wanted to move. It was actually a lot earlier that I made that decision. So yeah. So that's life. And I'm in Arizona now. So we're visiting Aaron's cousin for their birthdays. They have the same birthday, September 5th. So happy belated to Aaron if you want to wish him a happy birthday.
Aw, that's exciting.
And yeah, he turned 26. I know, super old.
Super young.
I know, that was sarcasm.
Yeah. Love it.
But we're
really.
visiting his cousin out here who has an awesome house and just a great area. Phoenix is such a cool area. Have you ever been?
Yeah, multiple
Okay.
times. I compete out in Arizona.
Oh yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I freaking love this town. It is awesome, but it is hot.
Yeah. So we'll see though. We're supposed to potentially do that live event in the very beginning of June. When are the dates again? Do you remember?
Yeah. So the IFCA event, it's the 7th and 8th.
7th and 8th. Okay. So I have a hunt the very first week of June. But again, I'm gonna be like 7-8 months pregnant. So it depends if I can waddle up a mountain.
Oh my God.
Otherwise I'll probably drive to Arizona with Raya and attend the event. So we'll see. Either way, I'm gonna be traveling.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll be back in Phoenix for that. But yeah, that's life. So Christina's pregnant, I'm moving, and there's a lot of moving pieces going on.
Yeah, that's super exciting though. I mean, I think it's really cool that one of the things, so it's funny, I was listening, so we've talked about our favorite podcasts on here before. We did a Q&A and we talked about the podcasts that we like and kind of that inspired us to start our own. And I love Mind Pump. I just think that the guys are so funny. I love their personalities. They're really smart. And I find myself, and I feel really bad because as a fitness professional, I should listen to these portions, but if it's just a topic conversation or if they do like a Q&A about fitness, I almost I'll listen to the first like 45 minutes where they just shoot the shit and talk and like do life updates and talk about their kids and just like banter back and forth. And then they'll get into their Q&A and they'll have listeners or like and I will choose the next one. No, I don't even listen. I should go to the next one. And I just want to listen to them talk because it's just so entertaining. And I think part of it is I like listening to them when I don't need to like concentrate and sit there and really think about what they have to say. But I don't know. I just think it's so funny because those are the podcasts that I enjoy the most. And so I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny that we're doing that now.
Yeah. I think definitely like we could do better about in general, like on more of our episodes, doing a little bit of personal update or banter at the beginning, because we do like typically tend to just dive right in.
I think we're just excited about the topics. So it's hard for us not to just like get in.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, you guys are listening to us on a weekly basis and sometimes, catching up on even more episodes per week. So like, I think it would make sense. And we know as like, from like a marketing perspective, like the personal side of things and like our personal brand and our lives, like you guys like that stuff too. So like just trying to be better about that from like a holistic standpoint. And then of course, just like allowing you guys to get to know us better because like that just improves a relationship, even though it's just us talking to you guys.
Yeah. But so no, I mean, that's super exciting and interesting enough. So when we had to create our list of where we wanted to go, North Carolina was actually number one. So
really?
that was, yeah, but it's really hard to get there. And so we knew we weren't going to get it. And I mean, we tried anyway, but it didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, we love the North Carolina area. And I think part of it is growing up in Northern Virginia. Like you visit North Carolina and South Carolina quite a bit. So you start to really like that area. But yeah, we love it. But I'm excited to come visit you and see your house.
Yeah. If you are listening through audio, Aaron just walked into the room that we're recording.
Yeah, if we're watching, you can see him. Hi.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I'm super excited. So I guess the only other thing that I missed is like our build time is like 7 to 9 months or so. So I don't think they've broken ground yet. I should be getting a call from our builder before they do that. So hopefully we'll be informed and maybe we'll be able to go down and see that. But
yeah.
some people did see like my post on Instagram and were like, oh, like good luck with the move. And I'm just like, we're not there yet.
Yeah, not even
it'll,
close.
it'll be like March, April or so. So that'll
Yeah.
be another busy time, which actually that kind of coincides really well with your delivery date, right? Isn't it March?
March 3rd.
So yeah, that whole time, I think we're going to have to do a lot of episode front loading.
Yeah, well, at least it's for both of us and not just me.
Yeah. So that'll be
Yeah.
really important.
So I'm either going to come visit you with my baby or I'll leave the baby at home and come visit you and take some time away.
That is so crazy for me to even
Yes.
consider.
You're not the one having it, but yeah.
I know.
Yeah, but no, that's super exciting.
That's one thing that like because I work with, so this kind of like gets into what we were thinking about talking about today, but like we'll probably brush over some. But like when I work with my pre and postnatal clients, because like we both have been working on, and I recently just finished my pre and postnatal specialization certification, and it's like I've worked with a number of pre and postnatal, and I'm like, I understand from the standpoint that I have read about it, but I do not understand from the standpoint that I've been through it. And
Yes.
now you'll be able to say that you have.
Yeah. So I think it actually worked out really well. So the beginning, I don't know, would you say like 4-ish, 5-ish chapters are just kind of like an overview of coaching in general. And, it's great to brush up on, but it didn't really have a whole lot to do with pregnancy. I mean, it did, but not really.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the way you address your clients is pretty similar. But I really started diving into it and I stopped and I had to go back to school. And so I kind of put studying on the side, and now going back into it, now being pregnant, it just is so different. And so reading about it is just really helpful. And I appreciate it a lot, but yeah, same thing. And so I think it's so funny. It's because recently I had a client who just had her baby and a couple of days ago, and throughout her journey coaching with me, she would complain, and not overly complain. I don't want to make it sound like she was like a bad client or anything. She's wonderful. But every now and then she would just let me know how she was really feeling.
Yeah.
She found out I was pregnant and she goes, I'm so sorry I complained so much. And I had to tell her, and I was like, it's okay. And I was like, your experiences and your feelings are 100% valid. Like, you don't need to feel bad for me or anything like that. But it was just interesting, like having clients who either are pregnant, just had a baby, or are postpartum, and kind of hearing their experiences and now being pregnant myself. It's just, I don't know. It's just like a very cool, very different experience.
Yeah. It's just probably like, I'm so sorry. I probably scared the crap out of you to even be pregnant.
Yeah, but no, it's fine. And I think, I mean, like you mentioned, we will definitely do a more formal topic podcast, and we're still deciding on how we want to go ahead and break it up or organize it. So we were thinking either doing a pregnancy like nutrition edition, and then a pregnancy training edition. And so we'd have like a part 1 and part 2, or if we would just do first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. So if you are pregnant or want to be in the future and you have a preference, we would love to hear your guys' input and organize it in the best way possible. But otherwise, we will have a more very in-depth sit down topic podcast for you guys.
Yeah, especially because like we were gonna do that today when we were recording, but it's just like I'm in Arizona, I don't have my books, and like I would want to brush up a little bit and like make sure everything was fresh. But yeah, like kind of just if you have an opinion, please message us like as you are listening. If you're not driving, like text us right now, DM us and be like, which one do you prefer? Because we really want to know and structure that out appropriately.
Yeah, because we love, like we mentioned, every single podcast, we love your guys' input and how we can best help you is what we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us
Um,
more about how you're feeling. I know we put up some question boxes just like about
yes.
pregnancy and what people want to know. I know most of yours were about you and like what
Mhm.
you have been feeling dealing with plans before birth control, etc. So you
Yes.
want to run through those?
Yeah. So I would say probably the number one question I got was, were you trying to conceive? How long have you been trying? And just kind of the backstory with everything. And the next few questions I got were, what were your first symptoms? How has your first trimester been? And how far along are you? Things like that. So I guess I'll just kind of dive into it a little bit. So to put this in the best terms possible, this year, my husband and I have been less careful with forms of birth control. And I think we've talked about this before, but I stopped my hormonal birth control in 2016 for a contest prep, and I never went back on it. And I'm really, really happy with that decision. I wish I had done it sooner. But I was on the pill for a very long time. And since then, I haven't used anything. And so I had been very diligent about tracking my cycle and learning a little bit more about myself and my body. And again, I would recommend any female to do it, whether or not you're trying to conceive. I just think it's really good information to have. And I would say the last couple months, I actually had purchased a basal body temperature thermometer. So I was tracking that and logging that data as well. And it was super interesting to see. And I was logging all of that information. And then again, we just were less and less and less careful, even with that information. And we had a conversation in June. We're kind of like, hey, like right now, it's just kind of like, if it happens, it happens, but we're not necessarily trying for anything. And so we were like, but when do we want to start? When do we want to actually start trying? And I think from being on social media and having friends, there are a lot of people who struggle with infertility and are having issues conceiving. And so I well, both of us thought with my past with competing that might be an issue. And, it's just, you never know how long your journey is going to take. So I was like, well, if we're constantly waiting for the right time, the right moment, it might not actually be the quote unquote right time. And it might take us, a year or two. So we decided, okay, well, we'll start trying in July, August timeframe and just kind of go from there. But little did I know, when we were having that conversation, I was actually pregnant at the time, which is super crazy, like looking back on that. Um, so I didn't know. We had that conversation probably around our 4-year anniversary. So right around that, like June 17th. And again, because I was tracking my cycle, I kind of had an idea when our ovulation window would be in July. My husband was going on a 2-week long trip. And so I knew I was supposed to get my cycle at the end of June or at the end of May. And no, sorry, that was my last cycle at the end of June. And it kept pushing back because I didn't get my period, didn't get my period. And I told him, I was like, babe, we're not gonna be able to try in July because like you won't be here. So we're gonna have to try in August. And he was like, okay, well, we'll try in August. And I had PMS symptoms, but I didn't. It's like super weird to describe, but I think it's so frustrating for people, whether you are trying to conceive or don't want it to happen. It's so frustrating because PMS symptoms are the same as early pregnancy symptoms. So it's hard to decipher. But I will say I did feel very different this time around. I cramped a little bit, but nothing ever really obviously came of it. And I had the sorest boobs I've ever had, ever. And I remember Marissa and I were getting on a podcast and I
I
had like a
remember this.
baggy t-shirt on. It was before the podcast. And I was just holding them. And I was like, they're so sore. But it was just something I had never experienced before. And so it just felt different. And then I was like Googling like, pregnancy symptoms and all this stuff. And I was in the car with my parents. My parents were here visiting, and we were driving around in the car, and I was reading all these symptoms. And then I got home and was feeling nauseous. And then I was telling Brian, I was like, I don't know. Well, this is after the fact, after I found out, but I told him, I was like, I don't know if it was actual nausea. I don't think it was, because I didn't experience that until later in the pregnancy. But I was like, I think I was just like that point where you read all these symptoms that you almost start to experience them. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what I was doing to myself.
You're
But
noceboing yourself.
yeah. But it just felt different. And so my my parents were here. And so that means that we were drinking quite a bit. And it was June 26th. I remember it's because we were going to Cloudcroft, New Mexico, and I wanted to take a pregnancy test because I just wanted to be sure. I was like, well, if we're drinking, I just want to be sure that like I can do it or I should stop. And I took it and it was negative. So that was the very first pregnancy test of my entire life. I've never taken one before that.
Really?
Yes, my first one ever. And it was negative. And so I will say though, with the disclaimer, I don't know if it was because my HCG levels were too low to pick it up, or if I'm an idiot and I did it wrong. Because I thought that it was just simple, right? Like you just pee on a stick and you wait. So no, it's not that
Wait,
symptom.
I thought that's
No, it's not that simple. You like can't turn the stick like right side up. Like you can't do it a certain way, and then you can't pee like far up on the stick. And like, so there are all these rules. And I didn't realize that until after I read the instructions, and I was like, oh, maybe I should have done this. So the second time I took it, which was 5 days later, I partially because I was like, well, let me just see if it comes, like, because I took it pretty early on in my cycle. And so I was like, let me just see, like, I don't know, just give it some time. I still didn't get it. So I was like, all right, it's time to take another one. So this time, instead of peeing on a stick, I peed it in a cup and then dipped it. And that's the other way to do it. And so it was like, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds and boom, it was like pregnant. And I freaked out. I mean, part of it is because we weren't really trying at that point, but I was just so excited. And it was right before my husband was getting ready for work. And so I like was freaking out and trying, he was getting ready, and I was like processing all this information, and I was like trying to hide the pregnancy test so he wouldn't see it. And then I was like, so when are you coming home? Like, are you going to come home? Like, it's going to be a short day. But I wanted to go out and take another one later in the afternoon, because that's when your HCG levels are lower. So they're at the higher at the beginning of the day. And so I wanted to take it later on just to see if it would register again. And same thing, it was like 2:00 in the afternoon. It was like 10 seconds, boom, like pregnant. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So I've taken 2. So they say I'm pregnant, like I'm freaking pregnant. So I had bought some stuff, and then I surprised him later that day with like a little box that had like a little swaddle, a little coffee mug that said Papa Bear, and like a little note. And I surprised him, and he was so excited. He looked at it and he was like, what is this? And I was like, it's a package for you. And he's like, for me? And I was like, yeah, I accidentally opened it. And he's like, okay. So he sat there and he opened it up, and he sat there for like 10 seconds, and he was looking at it. He's like, what is this? I was like, what do you think? And he was like, are you pregnant? I was like, yeah. And he goes, are you really? I was like, I found that this morning. He was like, this morning? I was like, yeah. So he is so excited. He's wanted to be a dad for so long. So it was really cool. And I think in the past, I've wanted to wait and wanted to wait. And the fact that I was so excited just made me realize, like, okay, I feel like guess I'm kind of ready as you can be.
Yeah.
So those were my first symptoms. That's how I found out. It's kind of crazy to say that those are my first 3 pregnancy tests I've ever taken.
Yeah. Wait, so you
Yeah.
told me that day,
Did I the first?
because I thought I remember you sent me the picture of the box for your husband. Like, I don't know. I'd have to go back. Maybe it was just after.
I can't remember, but it was definitely after. He was the first person I told. Well, okay. There were like three other people who found out before
Oh,
he
this
did.
was funny. This was
Yeah.
funny.
So I was at Target. I had literally just found out that morning. I was trying to get like a cute onesie or blanket or something to put in this little box to surprise my husband. And this like old lady was there and she looked at me and she was like, lots of choices. And I was like, yeah, it's overwhelming. And she was with her, I think her granddaughter, and they were walking around the store looking at baby stuff. And she came up to me and she was like, are you pregnant? Or do you have a kid? And I was like, I just found out this morning. And she's like, oh, congratulations. And then she was like, if you need to do a registry, they have this really cool gun and you go around and you can tag your registry. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. And her granddaughter came up to her. She's like, Grandma, she doesn't work here. And she was like, I know, I was just telling her about the gun. And they were like, oh, okay, are you pregnant? And I was like, yes. And they were like, oh, congratulations. So it just, I don't know, I felt it was so funny that this family found out before my husband. um but yeah, so I think Marissa was probably, I think you were the first friend that I told.
I'm so honored.
Yes, I think you're the first friend that I told after my husband, and then I told you actually before I told my parents, but only because I wanted like a very specific way that I like told them and wanted it to be
Yeah.
a little bit more than telling Marissa like, hey, I'm pregnant.
Yeah, I think I just got like a freaking text with like the pregnancy test.
No, no, we got on Zoom.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Never
got on
mind.
Zoom because I remember I was seeing your face. That's what I remember.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it would have been funny if you were just like, here's a picture. Guess what?
I guess that. But yeah, as far as first trimester, I haven't really had any nausea, which or morning sickness. So I'm so thankful for that because I know a lot of women have had very different experiences. So other than the pregnancy test, going into the hospital to get my confirmation test, and then the ultrasounds, I wouldn't really necessarily believe it because I feel so normal. And there have been a couple times that I've gotten sick, but it's only because it was like something that was like super foul smelling. Like one day our trash was really bad. And one time there was something that had gone bad in the fridge. And so I don't know, I think I'm probably just a little bit like extra sensitive. And so I did throw up because of that, but it was like, it's not just nausea.
Yeah.
And then this is kind of super weird too, but I get nauseous if I'm overly hungry. So if
Oh,
there's too
I
much,
get that.
yeah, if there's too much time that has gone by between my first meal or my one meal and another meal, and I get overly hungry, I start literally like gagging. It's
Oh, wow.
super weird. Yeah. So there have been a few times where I've just had to bring like crackers or something with me if I don't really want to have a full meal, but I just want something that'll go down easy. So there have been times where we'll go like scouting for hunting and I'll literally just be like snacking on crackers. And so my hunger has kicked in earlier. So normally I would like fast and have like water and coffee and greens, but I've found myself eating a little bit earlier in the day, or earlier in the morning, which has been fine because I need to eat. My appetite had been kind of like up and down. I had been getting very full very quickly early on, which I know happens in like the third trimester, but this
Yeah.
was happening early. I don't know why, but that was some of what I experienced. And then just being tired. So I'm not a napper. I don't like napping. I don't really enjoy it. I feel very groggy afterwards and like moody. And so my husband naps all the time and I will like kind of lay down with him for like maybe 5 or 10 minutes. He falls asleep and then I'll get up and like do other things.
Yeah.
Even if I'm tired, I just don't nap. But when we went to Yellowstone and like Grand Teton, we hit up all those national parks. Like we would go around and then we come back to our campsite and I would basically nap for like 1 or 2 hours and then get up and like do the rest of the day and then come back and fall asleep super early. And so I had that kind of fatigue. I still have a little bit of fatigue right now, but it's really not as bad as it had been before. And I don't know, I feel like I'm almost exaggerating all the symptoms that I had, because it really hasn't been bad at all. I've been very mobile, been very active, and just overall very thankful for the experience so far.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one thing to kind of take away from this too, and this is something we'll get into more detail with in our pregnancy podcasts, but everyone's experience is going to be so, so different, and the experience within the same person. So if Christina, you were to have another kid, your second pregnancy could be a total shit show.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, I know.
Not to rain
I
on your
know.
parade, but I'm
No.
just saying, like, for example's sake, like it could literally be like the polar opposite of like she
Right.
could be nauseous. And so like a lot of times, like setting expectations for a pregnancy, like go in with no expectations, because like it could literally be like a breeze, like kind of like how you're experiencing, or really, really difficult and awful. And I've
Yeah.
at least with my clients, I've seen it definitely across the spectrum in terms of experience and what
Yep.
that's been like. uh, so just kind of like adjusting based on what you're experiencing and not what you think you should be going through.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is really important, and not just with pregnancy, but I think especially during pregnancy, is not to compare your experience to someone else's. And I think especially when it comes to your body and your bump, because I have definitely felt that a little bit too, even early on. But it's hard. I was like going back to people who I knew were pregnant and trying to see when they started showing and what they looked like at that time. And I just felt like, okay, like, Christina, you're driving yourself crazy. Like, just, it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
you can't change anything. So just accept it, be happy. Don't waste any time thinking that you should look another way, or that you being unhappy that you don't, and just really focusing on what's important is growing a healthy, happy baby.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just to add on to that, and again, more detail in another episode, but just how goals shift, with, I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we had talked about something along the lines of like you doing some sort of a mini cut, like over summertime or something like that, just to like get a little bit more comfortable and then like go back into building. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So like how goals might shift, because like a lot of women, their goal happens to be fat loss. And like, guess what? Like that's not the best idea when you're trying to grow another human being. So
Yeah.
goals shifting, expectation shifting, and really just adapting that to, what is conducive to the bigger picture. And I think I do want to draw this out like bigger picture towards just like anyone who could be listening with a fitness goal, and just thinking about how your short term should align with your long term and your bigger picture. And I've been really big into that whole concept of just like alignment lately, of you need to have that in your short term, your midterm, and then your long term goals, because otherwise there's going to be some kind of a disconnect between your actions and your intentions. And I think we have touched on this in a recent podcast too, but just like when it comes to, being pregnant and growing a baby, like that is the overarching big picture. And so if you're trying to cut calories, do extra cardio, work out really hard, like do all these things that might not be conducive, like in that moment, you really have to be able to kind of just step back and evaluate that with whether it's
Yeah.
pregnancy or anything else.
Yeah, and we can touch on this later too, but that was something that I experienced because we were trying to kind of do this mini cut, and it was kind of funny that I really wasn't losing any weight. And so I was like, what the heck? Like, I was doing like, adding in extra cardio sessions, I was cutting food, and I really wasn't seeing any big changes. And then I got pregnant and I was like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
But it was really difficult in the beginning because I took a little bit of a step back from training, and it was a lot of it wasn't because of any symptoms I was experiencing. I mean, I was really tired, but it was more so like a mental thing for me, that I was like, well, what's the point? It doesn't matter because I'm just going to get fat. I mean,
Yeah.
to put it very blunt, that's kind of how I felt. And I think it was just part of me still adjusting to finding out that I was pregnant, seeing my body go through some changes, because I was very surprised how quickly you start to show, or at least personally, I could feel it, like your uterus just kind of starts to stick out a little bit more, can't really suck it in. And I was just kind of like, wow, this is all happening really fast. So I was trying to process all of this. And then the fact, of course, that we're having a kid. And then with training, I just kind of, I didn't really see the point of it. Even as a fitness professional who knows that working out is super beneficial for both me and the baby, it was still mentally hard for me to get into the gym and to train. So a lot of it, like you mentioned, is trying to realign. And I think taking time to really set your mentality and kind of be like, okay, well, what are my new priorities? Like, what are my new expectations for myself? And how do I go about shifting those so I am happy with my choices and my actions?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like just reevaluating, because I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So like how could you have known how you would have reacted to
Right.
that news, to that new state of life? And like yeah, just it's crazy to think like it's like, oh well, you're a fitness professional. Like of course you would have like
Oh, I'll
a
just keep working out.
yeah, like nothing
Yeah.
changes. Like that's not, we don't know that's what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
I think that's like honestly really just like, I don't know if the best word is like admirable for you to admit, or like just like really honest and transparent. Like, you didn't have the, I guess, the quote unquote best perspective about it, like at the very beginning when you were adjusting, but like that's what was going through your head. And like, I'm sure a
Yeah.
ton of women are going to relate to that, of
Yeah.
like just dealing with that identity crisis of like, well, if I can't be like my fittest self, whatever that means to you,
Mm-hmm.
then, what's the point of even trying? Or like, if my body's going to go in this direction I deem as quote unquote negative, the scale going up, measurements getting bigger, adding body fat, not, getting leaner, then if I deem that as negative and I'm going to go in this direction anyways, then, whatever. And this is how a lot of women kind of like add to their pregnancy with, weight that they don't necessarily need to gain, or just like going through pregnancy and then getting themselves to a place after where they're like, I don't want to do that again. Because that's where a lot of people have come to me is, I am postpartum, I just got cleared to exercise, and I know I want another kid and I don't want to go through what I went through again. That is, I think,
Yep.
the number one thing that I hear more common than like actually getting someone before they go through pregnancy. And yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And the same thing. I'll have some people who are like, I had a really bad experience when I want to not do that for my second, my third, my fourth. And I think it is really important. I think it highlights the importance of fitness and nutrition when you are going through a pregnancy. And I've had a lot of my clients who have had their babies, and they'll come back and say, it is for the ones that have, it's their first, they said, pregnancy, or, actually giving birth and bouncing back. No, I don't want to say bouncing back, but the recovery time was nowhere near what they thought it was going to be. And they attribute a lot of that towards being active and healthy during their pregnancy. And then the ones who were, or this is their in multiple children, they've had multiple children before, and they'll say working out made a huge difference for them, and they can tell. So it is really important. Again, we will touch on this in the both the training and nutrition, or however we decide to break up the episodes, but it is really important. And so I think, like I just mentioned, having those expectations, and like, yeah, you might not be able to be in the gym 6 or 7 times a week like you were before, but doing any sort of activity, like being just active in general, is very, very important.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I do want to cover on this podcast is just the expectation, or I guess in the myth kind of, that you can't start anything new when you are pregnant, because it's actually not true. Do you want to go balls to the wall all into something super high intensity when you first get pregnant? No, you don't. uh, but it is possible and safe, with the appropriate guidance, to start an exercise program or start to make healthier decisions with your nutrition when you're pregnant. And it can be extremely, extremely beneficial. How you approach it based on your experience level should be different. So a total novice, and maybe you just found out you're pregnant and you're just getting into exercise for the first time in like 10 years or even like a year or two, that's going to be a different experience than if you had been working out the entire time. But just to know, if you're listening to this and you are trying to conceive, or that's something that you see in your near future, best advice would be start an exercise program now so that you can kind of build up and then taper back as needed while you are pregnant. But if you are just now with Christina finding out that you are recently pregnant, know that it is actually okay and advisable for you to start a program, a training program, but it has to be adapted very much so to your experience level. And just in general, the intensity that you train at when you're pregnant is going to be graded down lower than if you were not. So just making sure you have a professional who is licensed in some way in this area so that they know how to adapt that for you. And then of course, if you are, in between pregnancies, or, you're postpartum and you're going to have more kids, know that it can make or break the difference between your recovery time and just how your body, quote unquote, bounces back. I'm using like really heavy air quotes there, but bounces back after a delivery.
Yeah. And again, I think that's super important, not just to talk about the pregnancy aspect, but also postpartum, because that's a whole other mental ball game. Obviously, I'm not there yet, but have worked with a lot of clients and have, seen a lot of people and who have talked about their experience. So I think that's extremely important, and we will touch on as well. So I don't know, maybe we even add in a postpartum episode, but we have a lot to talk about, because I think, again, as we get older, we have a lot more experience with clients who have been pregnant, who are trying to get pregnant, all of that. So it's a really important topic for us to cover. We want to make sure that you guys are very informed and know what to do moving forward, wherever, or I guess in whatever stage you're at right now or in the future.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, right? Like what's our percentage of listeners that are women? Like 90?
I think we're at 80.
80? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So still vast majority of our listeners of you guys are women. And then, what is it, like 80 something percent of 85?
Yeah, but even though, like, even if you are a male and you're listening to this, and we're 45 minutes in, like, if you were like, well, I'm tuning out, but if you are one of those guys right now who is still listening, I think it is very important to understand what your partner could potentially be going through. Absolutely. In order to best help and support them. So just because you aren't experiencing this yourself, it is really good for you to know how you can support your partner moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. But what was I saying?
Our population getting pregnant, probably.
Right. So, of that 80%, it's what, like the statistics, like 85, 86% of all women will have a baby at some point in their lives. Right. And so that is not a minority. That is not a niche population. It's not something that 1 in 10 people experience. It's like, it is literally like almost every other person. So just addressing it because it needs addressing. And I think it's just kind of sad, in my opinion, that like there's really only one like targeted certification for personal training and pregnancy, and the research on it in general is really slim, obviously for ethical reasons.
Right.
You're not going to put pregnant women like through a bunch of like randomized controlled trials to see like, oh, whose baby delivers or like whose baby like dies in the process. Like that would be freaking terrible. But like, not a lot of research, obviously, like mostly observational stuff of like, oh, these women did this like on their own and their babies ended up fine, and like all of that. So it's a hard topic to gather more data on, but really happy to have gone through that certification, because it's just, I mean, it opens so many doors to things that like, I don't know about you, but I think you were a little bit more kind of self-educated on things like tracking your cycle and being more in tune with your body. But like for me, and for a lot of people that I have kind of like helped through this, or like just women in general knowing about their own bodies, a lot of shit that no one talks about until you go through pregnancy yourself or read the whole textbook.
Right. Well, and something I discussed on my Instagram account is I think as of right now, I've probably had lost about 200 followers since I made the announcement, which is completely fine. And I expected it to happen because I was one of those people too. When I, 2, 3, 4 years ago, if someone on my feed got pregnant, I just couldn't relate with their content anymore because I wasn't in that state of mind. I didn't
Yeah.
want kids at the time. I just didn't want to hear about their pregnancy. I wasn't working with clients who were pregnant yet. And so I would unfollow because I just didn't relate to their content. And as much as I might have loved that person, I just wasn't mentally there. So I understand. And so this might be you where, you don't really care a whole lot about my journey or to listen to these specific podcast episodes. And that's completely understandable if you don't relate to it. Again, if you're one of those people, you probably haven't made it an hour into this episode. But if it is like, there's no hard feelings if you don't want to listen, or if this information doesn't relate, just as any of our episodes, they just may not relate to you and you just don't really want to take in that I don't know, information. But yeah, a lot of it is, for me, it was kind of self-taught or just kind of things that I would pick up here and there. But honestly, a lot of it is social media, just kind of like, I don't know, seeing people and what they're doing. They have these, I don't know how you say it, the UVA rings, or have you seen those that people are wearing?
Sounds very familiar.
It tracks your temperature, it tracks your sleep. It's kind of like a smartwatch, but it's a ring, and it gives you some really, really cool information. And so if you are someone who wants some really good information, Joelle Samantha, you follow her too, but she's 37 weeks pregnant
Is she really?
I think she's 36, 37. She thinks that she'll go into labor in a week or two. I think 2 weeks is what she's thinking. I think there's like a full moon on the 21st. That's what she's thinking. But she's tracked her all of her biofeedback through this ring during her pregnancy. Yeah. And it's been really cool. And so they're actually using her, that company is using her data to kind of see how things change throughout pregnancy. So she's a really good person to follow. She's been sharing a lot of good information. She's got some really good stories when it comes to who should be in your care throughout the duration of your pregnancy. So again, those are some stories I think we'll share later on. And then the other thing too is we can come up with a list of people that would be really good to follow if you are, again, pregnant, trying to get pregnant, or want to be in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned this ring. That's like this crazy piece of technology, because I literally, before we started recording, I was like, Christina, I got AirPods. These things are amazing. They've been around for so fucking long. And I'm like amazed at the fact, like, you take one out and the music pauses automatically, or like, and the case charges the AirPods, so you can charge the AirPods in the case, or you can charge the case alone. And like here I am, like in the fucking dark ages, like with my plugins to my laptop headphones, because that's like all I've been using. Christina's wearing them right now too.
Yeah, I'm covering them up.
So whenever they die, I still actually use the plugins too. But like, I was using, when I would go on walks, I would literally just plug the ones that go into the new iPhones with the lightning cable headphones. So I would only use those instead of AirPods. So like literally it's been probably too long, but I'm like, wow, like I can't believe that technology exists, like that ring that track. Like, of course it does, Marissa. You're just like 20 years behind.
Yeah. Here I am just being a grandma with my string. But I mean, I think that kind of wraps up today's episode. We'll, like we mentioned, we'll go further into depth on pregnancy and just all the different topics. And then if you guys have specific questions regarding pregnancy, if you want to know anything more specific with mine, of course, I'll share my experiences as I go deeper into my second trimester and all of those experiences. And it's, I guess I do have another little funny tidbit. When I was in my first trimester, I was like trying to listen to all these podcasts, and I was Googling like first trimester, and I listened to this one, and the guys were talking, and they were saying like, yeah, like you actually won't really find too many second trimester podcasts, because there's really nothing to say because it's super boring. And it's like everyone looks forward to the second trimester. So I thought that was pretty funny. But we'll probably have some more updates here soon, and we will keep you up to date on mine. And then, of course, if you want to follow along on Instagram, I did create a highlight. So you can have all that information there too if you missed anything. But we're open to any questions, comments, feedbacks that you guys have. Anything you want to know, let us know ahead of time. We'll probably do another Q&A just so we make sure that we're covering everything that you guys want to know.
I will say, we're not, and we said this at the beginning of the business podcast too, we're not pivoting to a pregnancy only podcast. We will still have all of our varied topics about all things health and fitness. But I think it's really great that we're dipping our toes into all of these kind of new avenues, new topics, just to like vary the type of content that we do give you guys, because this is obviously a really important one that we need to touch on. But we'll do a few episodes on it for sure. It's not going to be the only thing that we talk about ever again, so don't worry. Like there will be other topics, guests, et cetera, but I'm super excited to just be following along with all of the things that you experience as we go through it. I will on that note, the first trimester for most women tends to be like the worst in terms of symptoms if you're having them. And then, like you said, the second is like, you know, a breeze for most. And then the third is usually like where you just start to really feel like you're pregnant.
And then you're like, all right, I'm done.
Ready to pop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did get one question from someone who I know is probably listening to this. And she was like, what about early pregnancy? What do I do for lifting, for nutrition? And like, I promise we will get into all of that more in depth, but it's usually kind of, you know, if you feel like shit, take it easy. If you feel decent, take advantage of it, kind of mentality there, because it will be the hardest for most.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very short, but very good synopsis. I mean, it's really what it is. If you don't feel good, don't worry about it. Like you're growing a baby. And if you feel good, then take advantage. Don't go too hard, but it was a little bit of a different kind of style of today's podcast or today's episode, but we hope that you guys enjoyed it, and let us know if you want more like this. Yeah. Or if you're like, hey, stick to the script, and we'll be like, all right, got it.
Be honest with us, please.
Yeah. But if you haven't already, hopefully this, I don't know, wasn't your first episode, but make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You can find both of us on Instagram. You can find me at Christy Lynn Fit, and Marissa is at Marissa Roy Fitness. So thank you guys for listening, and we hope to see you back next week.